Your transmission does not fail overnight. It does not wake up one morning and decide to quit. It dies slowly, quietly, and almost always preventably. And by the time you feel it slipping on the highway or hear that first grinding thud going into reverse, the damage has already been building for months, sometimes years. The repair bill that follows is never small. On a full-size pickup truck, a transmission rebuild or replacement runs anywhere from $2,500 to over $5,000 depending on the truck, the shop, and how far gone the unit actually is. But here is what makes that number so frustrating. In the overwhelming majority of cases, it was completely avoidable. Every single thing on this list is something transmission specialists see over and over again in truck after truck, from owners who had no idea they were killing their transmission until it was already too late. Today, you are going to know all 9 of them before that happens to you. Here is who this video is really for. You drive a pickup truck. You use it the way a pickup truck is supposed to be used. You tow, you haul, you drive it hard when the job calls for it. Maybe you have never had a transmission problem in your life and you want to keep it that way. Maybe you have already had one rebuilt and you are not going back to that shop again if you can help it. Or maybe your truck is starting to do something subtle. A slight hesitation, a shudder at a specific speed, a shift that feels just a little softer than it used to, and something in the back of your mind is telling you to pay attention. Whatever brought you here, what follows is the kind of information that transmission shops know, and most truck owners never hear until they are already sitting across the service desk signing a repair order. Let's change that right now.
1. You treated the fluid like it was permanent. This is where the conversation has to start, because it is the root cause of more transmission failures in full-size pickup trucks than almost anything else on this list. The fluid. Specifically, the widespread belief, reinforced by factory documentation on many modern trucks, that transmission fluid is a lifetime fill that never needs to be changed. Let's be completely direct about what lifetime fill actually means. It means the fluid is engineered to last the designed service life of the transmission under the operating conditions the manufacturer used when they defined that service life. Those conditions are not what most pickup truck owners actually subject their transmissions to. The factory definition of normal service typically assumes primarily highway driving, light to moderate loads, consistent operating temperatures, and minimal towing. The moment your truck regularly tows a trailer, hauls a loaded bed, sits in stop-and-go traffic with the transmission cycling through gears repeatedly, operates in extreme summer heat or deep winter cold, or climbs, and descends grades under load, you are in severe duty territory. And severe duty eats transmission fluid significantly faster than the lifetime designation accounts for. Here is the chemistry of what actually happens. Automatic transmission fluid serves multiple functions simultaneously. It acts as a hydraulic fluid to actuate clutch packs and bands. It acts as a lubricant for gears, bearings, and bushings. And it carries a friction modifier additive package that controls the feel and engagement characteristics of every shift the transmission makes. Heat is the primary enemy of all 3 of those functions. Every time your transmission generates heat, which it does on every tow, every heavy pull, every extended grade, every hot summer commute, the fluid's viscosity index depresses slightly, the oxidation inhibitors deplete incrementally, and the friction modifier chemistry degrades. That degradation is cumulative and irreversible. You cannot restore degraded transmission fluid by topping it off. You have to replace it entirely. And the problem with waiting until symptoms appear is that by the time you feel a soft shift or a shudder, the clutch pack friction material has already been absorbing that degraded fluid's inadequate lubrication for thousands of miles. The clutch packs are already worn. The fluid change at that point slows the progression, but does not reverse the damage. Change your transmission fluid every 30,000 to 45,000 miles if you tow or haul regularly. If your truck sees severe duty use, regular towing near capacity, frequent off-road driving, extreme climate operation, move that interval to 25,000 miles. The fluid service costs a fraction of a percent of what a rebuild costs. Do not skip it. 2. You never check the fluid level or condition. Separate from the change interval, there is the basic habit of actually checking what is in your transmission right now. and most truck owners never do it because the transmission does not have a dipstick on many modern full-size trucks. Ford eliminated the transmission dipstick on F-Series trucks starting in the early 2000s on several models. General Motors and Ram have followed similar paths on certain configurations. The reasoning from the manufacturers is that the fluid is a lifetime fill and therefore does not require regular owner checks. But here is the problem that creates in the real world. Transmissions can develop slow leaks from pan gaskets, cooler line fittings, or output shaft seals that lose fluid gradually, not fast enough to leave a puddle in your driveway every morning, but fast enough to drop the fluid level meaningfully over 20 or 30,000 miles. A transmission operating with a low fluid level runs hotter because there is less fluid volume to absorb and dissipate heat. It also starves the hydraulic circuit of the pressure it needs to engage clutch packs fully, which means every shift is slightly incomplete, and that incomplete engagement burns friction material off the clutch packs on every single gear change. You feel none of this while it is happening, but the wear is real and it is accumulating. On trucks without a conventional dipstick, checking the fluid level requires either a scan tool that can read transmission fluid temperature and allow a hot check procedure through the overflow plug, or a shop visit. It is more work than pulling a dipstick, but it is work that is worth doing every 30,000 miles, regardless of your service interval. While you are checking the level, check the condition. Fresh automatic transmission fluid is typically a clear red or pink color with a slightly sweet smell. Fluid that has been overheated is dark brown to black and smells burnt. If your fluid looks like used motor oil or smells like something scorched, the transmission has already been running too hot and damage has already occurred. Do not simply change the fluid and assume the problem is solved. Have the transmission inspected. 3. You ignored the transmission temperature gauge. Most full-size pickup trucks manufactured in the last 15 years have a transmission temperature readout available somewhere in the Driver Information Center, the same menu system that shows you oil life, tire pressure, and fuel economy data. And most truck owners have never once looked at it. Here is why that is a mistake that costs people transmissions every year. Normal operating temperature for an automatic transmission in a full-size pickup is generally considered to be somewhere between 170 and 210 degrees Fahrenheit. Those are the temperatures at which the fluid maintains its designed viscosity. The friction modifiers perform correctly, and the seals and clutch materials operate within their thermal design envelope. When transmission temperature climbs above 240 degrees Fahrenheit, which happens faster than most people realize when towing near capacity on a hot day, climbing a long grade, or sitting in traffic with a heavy trailer attached, fluid degradation accelerates dramatically. There is a commonly referenced thermal degradation rule in transmission service that states fluid life is cut roughly in half for every 20-degree increase in operating temperature above the normal range. That means a transmission running at 260 degrees is consuming fluid life at roughly 4 times the rate of one running at 220 degrees. Find the transmission temperature display in your Driver Information Center before your next tow. Watch it on your next loaded pull. If you see temperatures climbing above 230 degrees consistently, your transmission cooler may be undersized for your towing load, partially blocked, or your truck may need an auxiliary transmission cooler installed. An auxiliary cooler costs between $100 and $150 and can be installed in an afternoon. That is cheap insurance against thermal damage that compounds with every hot tow you make. Most auxiliary coolers mount directly in front of the radiator using the existing airflow through the grill, which means they require no cutting, no drilling, and no major modifications to install correctly on most full-size trucks. The cooler works by running transmission fluid through a series of thin aluminum fins that dissipate heat into the passing airflow before the fluid returns to the transmission, dropping operating temperatures by as much as 30 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit under heavy tow conditions. That temperature drop alone can double the effective service life of your transmission fluid on a long loaded pull. Keep in mind that if your existing factory cooler lines are showing any signs of deterioration, this is the perfect time to replace them as part of the same job. You are already working in the same area, and the lines will be disconnected anyway. Do not wait until your temperature gauge is regularly peaking in the danger zone before you act on this. By that point, the fluid has already been cooking on every toe and the cumulative damage is already done. 4. You used the wrong fluid. This one surprises people because they assume that transmission fluid is transmission fluid, that any red fluid from the parts store is interchangeable. It is not even close. Modern automatic transmissions in full-size pickup trucks are precisely engineered systems with hydraulic circuits, shift solenoid response times, and clutch pack engagement profiles that are calibrated around a specific fluid's viscosity and friction characteristics. Ford's 10-speed automatic transmission requires a specific Mercon ULV fluid. General Motors' Hydra-Matic 8-speed requires Dexron HP. Ram's ZF 8-speed requires a ZF-approved low-viscosity fluid. Using the wrong fluid, even a fluid that is close, in viscosity but uses a different friction modifier formulation, can alter shift quality, cause erratic solenoid behavior, and in some cases trigger hydraulic pressure faults that put the transmission into a protective limp mode. More importantly, a fluid with the wrong friction coefficient changes how clutch packs engage. If the friction modifier is too aggressive, clutches grab too hard and shock load the mechanical components. If it is too slippery, clutches slip during engagement and burn friction material. Both of those outcomes cause cumulative damage that develops over thousands of miles. Always verify the exact fluid specification for your specific truck's transmission before any fluid service. The specification is in your owner's manual, on the transmission pan in many cases, and in your truck's service documentation. Do not let a quick lube shop use a generic multi-vehicle fluid in your transmission. The savings at the counter are not worth what a mismatch can do over 30,000 miles of shifts.
If this kind of transmission knowledge is saving you from a costly mistake, go ahead and subscribe right now. We cover real truck maintenance and ownership tips every single week, and it will pay for itself many times over.
5. You never service the transmission cooler lines. Your truck's automatic transmission relies on an external cooling circuit to manage thermal load, particularly when towing. That circuit runs transmission fluid out of the transmission through rubber and metal cooler lines to either a transmission to radiator cooler integrated into the radiator end tank, a standalone air-to-fluid transmission cooler mounted in front of the radiator, or both in series. Most truck owners know the cooler exists in concept. Almost none of them ever inspect or service the cooler lines. Here is where that oversight creates problems. The rubber sections of transmission cooler lines, the flexible sections that allow for engine movement and vibration isolation, develop internal deterioration over time that is not visible from the outside. The inner lining of the hose delaminates and sheds small particles of rubber material that circulate through the transmission hydraulic circuit and contaminate the fluid. Those particles are soft enough that they do not immediately destroy anything, but they accelerate filter clogging, contaminate the valve body passages that control shift solenoid operation, and over time deposit in the narrow hydraulic galleries that control clutch pack engagement pressure. The result is erratic shift behavior, solenoid sticking, and pressure faults that are expensive to diagnose and repair because the contamination is distributed throughout the system. Inspect your transmission cooler lines at every transmission service. Look for swelling, cracking, weeping at the fittings, or any external sign of deterioration. If the lines have never been replaced on a high-mileage truck, replacing them proactively is cheap insurance. And when you do a transmission fluid service, always flush the cooler lines as part of the job, not just drain and fill the pan. Fluid that sits in the cooler and cooler lines during a standard drain and fill service reintroduces degraded fluid back into the fresh fill. A complete fluid exchange that cycles new fluid through the entire circuit, including the cooler, is the only way to fully refresh the system. 6. You towed in drive instead of using tow/haul mode. Let's talk about the tow/haul button, because there is a persistent myth in the truck-owning community that tow/haul mode is optional, or that it is only necessary on very heavy tows, or that experienced drivers do not need it because they know how to manage their speed and throttle. Every one of those ideas is wrong, and believing them costs transmissions. When you tow a loaded trailer in normal drive mode, your transmission's shift logic operates on the same parameters it uses for unloaded driving. It upshifts early to maximize fuel efficiency. It locks the torque converter at the earliest opportunity to reduce slippage and heat generation. And when you encounter a grade and the truck starts to slow, the transmission detects the speed drop and downshifts, then upshifts again when the engine recovers, then downshifts again when the next grade pitch increases. That constant hunting between gears under load, multiplied across every hill and every variation in road grade over the course of a towing trip, generates thermal load in the transmission that accumulates with every cycle. Each incomplete upshift under load is a moment of clutch pack slippage. Each unnecessary torque converter, unlock and relock, is a moment of heat generation in the fluid coupling. When you engage tow/haul mode, the transmission's shift programming changes fundamentally. It holds lower gears longer, so the engine stays in its optimal power band on grades without hunting. It delays upshifts to prevent the truck from being caught in too tall a gear when load increases. It uses engine braking on descents to reduce how hard the service brakes work, which reduces heat input to the entire drivetrain. And it manages torque converter lockup in a way that is calibrated for loaded operation rather than light-duty cruising. Use tow/haul mode every single time you tow, every time you carry significant weight in the bed, every time you are on a road with meaningful grade changes under any kind of load. The button is there for a reason. It costs nothing to press, and not pressing it is one of the most consistent contributors to premature transmission failure in working pickup trucks. 7. You shifted between drive and reverse while still rolling. This one seems minor. It is not. It is a habit that a surprising number of truck owners have developed, usually from years of parallel parking, backing into tight spots, or maneuvering in confined areas. And it puts a specific kind of shock load on the transmission that is completely outside what the unit was designed to handle. When you shift from drive to reverse while the truck is still rolling forward, even at 1 or 2 miles per hour, the transmission is commanded to engage the reverse clutch pack against the momentum of a vehicle moving in the opposite direction. The planetary gear set that handles the direction reversal absorbs that momentum as a sudden shock load on the clutch pack, the ring gear, and the output shaft. Do it once and nothing noticeable happens. The transmission is built with enough robust engineering to survive the occasional mistake. Do it consistently, every time you are backing into the driveway, every time you are repositioning a trailer, every time you are maneuvering in a parking lot. And those repeated shock loads fatigue the reverse clutch pack, wear the friction material faster than normal use would, and eventually cause the reverse clutch to slip or fail. Reverse is typically the first gear to go on a transmission that has been consistently shifted into while rolling because the reverse clutch pack is sized for controlled engagement, not for momentum absorption. The fix is simple and costs nothing. Come to a complete and full stop before shifting between drive and reverse. Every single time, it takes an extra 2 seconds. Over the life of the truck, that 2 seconds preserves the reverse clutch pack and keeps your transmission out of the rebuild shop for reasons that were completely unnecessary. 8. You ignored the early warning signs. Transmissions rarely fail without warning. They give you signals, sometimes subtle, sometimes unmistakable, that something is building toward a failure. And the single most expensive mistake a truck owner can make, other than neglecting the fluid entirely, is recognizing one of those signals and deciding to wait and see before doing anything about it. Here are the signals that should never be ignored. A shudder or vibration that occurs at a specific speed, typically between 35 and 50 miles per hour during light throttle cruising. This is almost always torque converter clutch shudder caused by degraded fluid that can no longer maintain proper lockup engagement. Caught early, a fluid change with the correct friction-modified fluid often resolves it completely. Left alone, the torque converter clutch plates wear through and the converter requires replacement, a job that means removing the transmission entirely. Delayed engagement, a pause of more than 1 second between shifting into drive or reverse and feeling the truck actually engage, indicates low line pressure, low fluid level, or a failing pump. All 3 of those causes are relatively straightforward to address when caught early and become significantly more expensive when the low pressure has been wearing clutch packs for another 10,000 miles. A burning smell after a hard tow, particularly if the smell persists after the truck has cooled down, means the fluid has overheated and the friction modifier chemistry is gone. The fluid needs to be changed immediately and the cooling system needs to be inspected before the next tow. Slipping between gears, a momentary loss of drive feeling where the engine revs up but the truck does not accelerate in proportion, means clutch packs are not holding. This is late-stage warning territory and requires immediate professional attention. The common thread across all of these warning signs is that the cost of addressing them early is almost always measured in hundreds of dollars. The cost of ignoring them until the transmission stops functioning is measured in thousands. Pay attention to what your truck is telling you. 9. You did not understand your actual tow rating. This is the peak tip. This is the one that catches the most truck owners off guard because it involves a number they think they know, their truck's tow rating, and a reality about that number that the window sticker does not fully explain. Your truck's maximum tow rating is a figure arrived at under very specific testing conditions, configured with very specific equipment, and representing the absolute top of the capability envelope, not the comfortable operating middle. Most truck owners read the tow rating as a target. Transmission specialists read it as a ceiling. Here is the difference that matters. Maximum tow rating is typically established with the truck configured optimally for towing, correct axle ratio, transmission cooler, trailer brake controller, weight distribution equipment, and often a crew cab short bed configuration that optimizes the weight distribution between axles. If your truck has a different axle ratio than the one used to establish the maximum rating, your actual safe tow capacity is lower. If your truck does not have an integrated transmission cooler or has only the basic radiator integrated cooler rather than a standalone unit, your thermal headroom at maximum tow weight is reduced. If you are towing in mountainous terrain, in extreme heat, or at altitude where engine output drops, the effective load on your transmission per unit of towing work increases substantially. And here is the compounding problem. Towing at or near maximum rated capacity puts your transmission in a thermal stress condition that it can sustain for a limited time before the fluid temperature climbs into the damage range. The longer the tow, the more the thermal load accumulates. A 50-mile flat highway tow at maximum capacity is a very different transmission stress event than a 300-mile tow through mountain grades at the same weight. Most truck owners making the second kind of trip are doing so with the same confidence as the first, and they are wondering why their transmission needs to be rebuilt at 90,000 miles when their neighbor's truck with the same mileage is still going strong. The neighbor is towing at 70 or 80% of capacity. That operating margin is not timidity. It is the reason the transmission lasts. Know your actual tow rating for your specific truck configuration. Account for terrain, climate, and trip length when deciding what you will pull. Run a transmission temperature monitor on loaded tows so you know where your thermal ceiling actually is in real-world conditions. Install an auxiliary transmission cooler if you tow regularly near the upper range of your capacity. And understand that your transmission's longevity is not determined by what your truck is theoretically capable of towing. It is determined by the margin you leave between your regular towing load and that theoretical maximum. That margin is what keeps the fluid cool. Cool fluid keeps the clutch packs alive. Alive clutch packs keep you out of the transmission shop for the life of the truck. Here is every one of those 9 things, pulled together into one simple truth. Your transmission is the most expensive single component in your truck's drivetrain, and it is almost never killed by one catastrophic event. It is killed by accumulation, thousands of miles of degraded fluid, hundreds of rolling shifts between drive and reverse, dozens of towing trips in normal drive mode with the temperature climbing unchecked, years of ignored warning signs that each individually seem too small to worry about. The truck owners who never rebuild a transmission in 300,000 miles are not driving easier roads or getting luckier with their trucks. They are simply doing the small things consistently, changing the fluid on schedule, using the right fluid, monitoring transmission temperature, using tow/haul mode every time it applies, stopping fully before shifting direction, and acting on warning signs before they become failures. None of those things are expensive. None of them require a mechanic for the most part apart. They just require knowing what matters and building habits around it. You know what matters now. Here is the question for the comments. Have you ever had a transmission fail? And looking back, do you recognize any of these 9 things as the reason why? Drop your story below. And if this video saved you from an expensive mistake, subscribe so you catch everything we put out. Real truck knowledge every week. No filler. See you in the next one.